They say family means sacrifice. But no one ever said what happens when you're the sacrifice. Aaron and I were nothing alike. He was sunlight, wild, reckless, impossible to ignore. I was shadow, quiet, careful, always cleaning up what he left behind. People said we balanced each other out. I used to believe that, until the night everything tilted. It started as a joke. We were eating cheap takeout on the couch when Aaron grinned and said, "If I ever disappear, it's probably because I owe someone money." I laughed. "Then I'll tell them to check the casinos." He winked. "And you'll bail me out like always." "I won't," I said. But we were brothers. And no matter how angry I got, I always waited for him to come home. That night, he was unusually restless. He paced around the kitchen, ruffling his messy hair, muttering about one last shot. "You're not going back there, are you?" I asked, arms folded. He gave a small grin. "Relax, Eli. It's not what you think." "It's always what I think," I muttered. "You gamble, you lose, you promise you'll stop. Then you do it again." "Not this time," he said, already pulling on his jacket. "This time I'll win." I sighed. "And if you don't?" He paused, just for a heartbeat. Enough for me to see something flicker in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. Then he forced a smile. "Then I'll find a way to fix it." He didn't come home that night. By morning, the house was empty except for the faint smell of smoke from the cigarette he'd left half-burned in the tray. I told myself he'd just stayed over somewhere. I told myself he'd call. He didn't. The knock came at 9 a.m., sharp, heavy, like a warning. 2 men in black stood at the door. One tall, one broad, both wearing the kind of expression that said don't ask questions. "Is Aaron Reed here?" the tall one asked. My stomach tightened. "No. Who are you?" "Business partners," he said simply. "He owes our boss a debt." I frowned. "Debt? What debt?" The tall man smirked. "You're his brother, right? Then you'll do." Before I could move, the broad one shoved past me. The last thing I felt was something hard striking the side of my head, and the world went dark. I woke up to the hum of an engine. The air was thick with the smell of leather and gasoline. My wrists were bound, and something rough covered my eyes, a blindfold. Panic clawed at my throat. "Where are you taking me?" No answer. Just the low sound of rain hitting metal, and the faint creak of leather as someone shifted beside me. I tried to remember how long we'd been moving. Minutes? Hours? It all bled together. When the car finally stopped, my door opened. Cold air hit my face, sharp and wet. "Get out," one of them ordered. Hands grabbed me, guiding, no dragging me forward. My feet stumbled on wet stone. I heard the crunch of gravel under boots, the echo of heavy doors opening, then closing behind us. The air changed, warmer, scented faintly of smoke and expensive cologne. "Take off the blindfold," a voice said. It wasn't loud, but it carried power. When the cloth was yanked away, I blinked hard. The first thing I saw was firelight, soft, gold, flickering against marble floors. And then him. Dante Moretti. Dark hair slicked back, suit unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up. He looked like someone carved from smoke and sin. He studied me like I was something he hadn't ordered, but might still keep. "You're not Aaron," he said quietly. I glared, the throbbing in my head growing worse. "No, I'm his brother. And you have no right to." He cut me off with a glance sharp enough to silence me. "Your brother owes me a debt. His signature says it's in your name too." "That's impossible," I said, voice shaking. "I never signed anything." "Maybe he did it for you," Dante said, stepping closer, his tone unreadable. "Either way, the debt stands. I don't even know you." He leaned in slightly, his eyes catching the firelight, molten gold, dangerously calm. "Then you'll have time to get acquainted. Until the debt is paid, you belong to me." My heart stuttered. "You can't just." But he'd already turned away, dismissing me like a piece of furniture. "Lock him upstairs," he told his men. "Somewhere he won't be stupid enough to try running." That night, I sat on the edge of a bed that wasn't mine, staring out at rain sliding down the window. The city lights were a blur in the distance, too far, too unreachable. I pressed my palms against the glass, whispering into the dark. "Aaron, where the hell are you? What did you do?" And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted him to come back, or if I'd never forgive him if he did. When I woke up, sunlight was already spilling through the tall windows, too soft, too gentle for the way my body felt. The room was beautiful, but it wasn't mine. High ceilings, velvet curtains, polished floors that echoed when I moved, and a locked door that reminded me exactly where I was. Dante Moretti's house. His prison. My wrists still ached from the ropes they'd used last night, faint bruises already forming on my skin. I'd always hated silence, but now it felt heavier, like it was waiting for me to break first. A knock came. Before I could answer, the door opened and a man in a black suit entered, setting a tray on the table. "Mr. Moretti said you're to eat," he said curtly. "I'm not hungry." He didn't respond, just left as quietly as he came, locking the door behind him. My stomach twisted, half from hunger, half from pride. I refused to touch anything. If Dante thought I'd sit here eating breakfast like some obedient pet, he was wrong. Hours passed. The mansion was too quiet. I could hear faint footsteps in the hall, doors opening and closing somewhere far away, and once, a laugh, sharp and low. Then, near dusk, the door opened again. This time, it was him. Dante. He didn't knock. He didn't need to. The air in the room shifted, just because he was in it. He wore black again, a suit without a tie, sleeves rolled, the top buttons undone. The kind of man who didn't need to say he was dangerous. The world already knew. "You haven't eaten," he said simply, glancing at the untouched tray. "I don't eat food from strangers," I muttered. His lips curved slightly. "Strangers don't usually keep you alive." "I didn't ask you to." He moved closer, slow and deliberate, until I could smell the faint spice of his cologne, something dark and expensive that made the air too warm. "You think you have a choice here?" he asked quietly. "I know I do," I shot back. "You can't control what I do, no matter how many locks you put on that door." Something flickered in his eyes, amusement, maybe admiration. "Defiant," he murmured. "I like that better than begging. I'm not trying to impress you." He smirked faintly. "You already are." My pulse stuttered. I hated that his voice could do that. Low, calm, like velvet over a blade. He reached for the tray, cut a piece of bread, and took a bite before setting it down again. "Now it's not poisoned. Eat." When I didn't move, he sighed. A slow, tired sound that didn't match the image of a ruthless man. "I don't need another corpse in my house, Eli. Your brother caused enough mess already." Something sharp twisted in my chest. "You talk about him like he's the only one who did something wrong." Dante's gaze locked on mine, steady, unreadable. "Isn't he? He's still my brother. Then you should have taught him better." The words hit harder than I expected. My throat burned, but I refused to look away. "I did," I whispered. He just never listened. For a moment, Dante said nothing. Then, softer, almost to himself. "People like him never do." He set the tray closer to me. "Eat. That's an order. And if I don't?" He stepped back toward the door, his tone flat. "Then you'll faint, and I'll have to feed you myself." I glared, but my stomach growled at the worst possible moment. His faint smirk said he'd heard it. I hated him. And maybe, just a little, I hated that I didn't. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too big, too quiet. I sat on the window ledge, watching the city lights far below. Freedom glittered in the distance, untouchable. Footsteps echoed outside the door. I froze as it opened. Dante again, holding a glass of whiskey. "You didn't knock?" I muttered. "It's my house." He came in and sat across from me, uninvited. "You didn't eat much. Maybe I'm still deciding if I want to live." "That's a dangerous answer," he said quietly. "Everything in this house is dangerous." He studied me then, really studied me. The kind of stare that stripped away layers I didn't want to show. "You're not what I expected," he said finally. "What did you expect? Someone weaker?" I laughed bitterly. "Sorry to disappoint." For the first time, he smiled. Not mocking, not cruel. Just real. It startled me more than his threats ever did. "Don't be," he said. "It's refreshing." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. Then he stood, finishing his drink. "Rest, Eli. Tomorrow, we talk about how to repay what your brother owes." I frowned. "What if I refuse?" He met my gaze, his voice low and steady. "Then you'll stay until you don't." When the door closed, I sank back against the wall, heartbeat still unsteady. For the first time since I woke up in this place, I wasn't sure what scared me more. The man who owned this house, or the strange, dangerous calm he brought with him. And worse, I wasn't sure which part of me wanted to see him again tomorrow. I stopped counting the days after 3. The mansion didn't feel like a place where time moved normally. Every hour stretched too long, heavy with silence. I'd wake up, eat food I didn't ask for, and stare at a locked door that refused to open no matter how many times I tried the handle. No one hurt me. No one spoke to me, either. I was just there, like some forgotten decoration in the Mafia's gilded cage. I'd spent most of the morning sitting by the window, staring out at the courtyard below. Guards in black moved like shadows through the mist. They didn't even look up. The world outside this glass looked close enough to touch. But the moment I did, the cold reminded me I was still a prisoner. Sometimes I thought about running. Then I remembered what kind of man Dante Moretti was, and what kind of people worked for him. So I didn't. I just waited. For something. Anything. When the door opened, the sound made my heart jolt. He walked in like he owned every second of the air I breathed. Black slacks, open collar, calm expression that gave away nothing. His presence filled the room before his voice even did. "Morning," he said simply. I forced a shaky breath. "You keep saying that like it means something in this place." A faint smirk touched his lips, gone before I could be sure it was real. "You're still alive. That's something." I looked away, muttering, "Can't argue with that." He walked past me, setting a glass of water on the nightstand. His movements were quiet, deliberate, not threatening, but not comforting either. For a while, he said nothing. He just stood there, looking out the same window I had. The silence between us stretched, filled with unspoken things. Finally, he spoke again. "You haven't eaten properly." My throat tightened. "Maybe I don't like being hand-fed by strangers with guns." "That's not smart," he said softly. "Weakness gets noticed here. Maybe I'm already too far past weak to care." That made him turn to me, eyes sharp, searching. "You think that makes you safe?" "I don't think anything makes me safe," I said, and it came out more honest than I meant it to. Something flickered in his gaze. Not pity. No, Dante Moretti didn't know pity. It was something quieter. Something almost human. He came closer, and I stiffened automatically. But his voice stayed low, steady. "I don't hurt people without reason, Eli." "Then what am I doing here?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes trailed down to the faint marks still on my wrists, fading bruises from the first night. Slowly, he reached forward, brushing his thumb over one of them. My breath hitched. The touch wasn't rough. It wasn't even possessive. It was gentle, almost careful, like he was reminding himself I wasn't made of glass, but could still break. "You shouldn't have been caught in his mess," he said quietly. "But you were. And now, you're here until I get what I'm owed." There was no threat in his tone. Just certainty. Cold and final. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream, to demand why he was pretending to care. But instead, my voice came out softer than I wanted. "And if my brother never pays?" He looked at me for a long time, unreadable. "Then you stay. Until I decide otherwise." He stepped back, giving me space again. The air between us felt heavier, like something had been said without words. As he reached for the door, I found myself speaking before I could stop. "You ever get tired of it?" He paused. "Of what?" "This," I gestured around. "Power. Fear. People only listening because they're scared to disobey." For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he turned his head slightly, enough for me to catch the faintest curve of a humorless smile. "Every day." And then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him, and I was left staring at the spot where he'd stood. I told myself it meant nothing, that it was just another conversation between captor and captive. But my heart wouldn't listen, because for the first time, I'd seen something real behind those grey eyes. And I wasn't sure if I should be afraid of him, or of the way he made me feel seen. The mansion was quieter than usual that night. Dinner had come and gone, another plate of untouched food on my tray, and the guards outside my door had stopped their usual shuffle of boots. The silence felt heavy, like the whole house was holding its breath. Maybe that's why I slipped out. The lock on my door wasn't even engaged tonight. Probably because Dante trusted that I'd learned not to try anything stupid. He was right. I wasn't trying to escape. I just wanted to breathe somewhere that didn't feel like a cage. The hallway was dim, lit by the soft gold of wall sconces. The air smelled faintly of smoke and expensive cologne, his cologne. I wandered aimlessly until I heard voices coming from the end of the corridor. One of them was sharp, irritated. The other calm, deep, unmistakably his. I shouldn't have stopped. But I did. "This isn't like you, Dante," a man said, his voice low but edged. "You've kept the boy alive. In a room. Untouched. The men are talking." Silence. Then Dante's voice, steady but cold. "Let them talk. You're losing control of the image that keeps them afraid," the other pressed. "They think you've gone soft. Over a debt. Over him." My heart started to pound. The silence that followed was so long it felt like the air itself went still. Then I heard something I'd never expected. A quiet, frustrated exhale. "They forget who I am," Dante said finally. His voice had gone lower, rougher. And maybe I'm tired of reminding them. There was a pause, footsteps, then a door closing, and the corridor fell silent again. I stood there frozen for a full minute, pulse racing. Gone soft. Because of me? The thought made something twist in my chest. Part guilt, part something warmer, sharper. When I finally crept back to my room, I couldn't sleep. His words, tired of reminding them, kept echoing in my head. By the time I found myself standing outside his office later that night, I didn't even know what I was doing anymore. The door was slightly open, a faint light spilling through the crack. He was there, sitting behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, cigarette burning low between his fingers. His expression was unreadable. I stepped inside before I could talk myself out of it. He looked up immediately, eyes narrowing slightly. You shouldn't be wandering around at night. I couldn't sleep, I said quietly. Then, before I could lose my nerve, I added, I heard what Marco said. Something flickered across his face, annoyance, maybe surprise. You were eavesdropping? I didn't mean to, I said quickly. But I heard enough. I took a step closer, searching his eyes. You're protecting me. And now everyone thinks you're weak, because of it. Why? He didn't answer. The only sound was the soft crackle of the cigarette as he exhaled. Finally, he said, you wouldn't understand. Then make me, I said, voice trembling. Because I don't get it. You could have hurt me, killed me, but instead you put me in a room and tell me to eat, to rest, like I'm some guest. Why? His jaw clenched. He stood slowly, walking around the desk until he was standing just inches from me. You really want to know? He asked softly. I swallowed hard. Yes. His eyes met mine, grey and burning with something dangerous. His voice dropped lower. Because every time I look at you, I remember the part of me I thought was gone. The part that doesn't want to be a monster. The words hit me like a punch. My breath caught, and before I could even process it, he was closer. His hand brushed against my cheek, tentative, as if asking for permission neither of us had given. My chest ached from how hard my heart was beating. Dante, I whispered, but it came out more like a plea than a warning. He hesitated for just a second. Then he leaned in, slow, deliberate, and kissed me. It wasn't rough. It wasn't angry. It was a quiet, devastating kind of kiss, like something breaking open between us that couldn't be closed again. When he finally pulled back, his eyes lingered on mine, breathing uneven. You shouldn't have come here tonight, he said quietly. But I could hear the truth in his voice. The same thing I felt in mine. Neither of us wanted me to leave. It's strange how quickly a cage can start to feel familiar. Days blurred together after that night. The kiss, that single, reckless mistake, hung in the air between us like smoke that wouldn't fade. He didn't mention it. Neither did I. But I felt it, in the way his eyes lingered too long when he handed me my morning coffee, in the stillness that filled the air whenever our hands brushed. He'd built walls again, cold, tall, impossible to climb, but somehow, I could feel him watching me from the other side. One evening, I brought him tea, something simple, something to bridge the quiet between us. He didn't drink it, just stared at the steam curling from the cup. Why are you doing this? I asked finally. His eyes lifted, sharp and unreadable. Doing what? Pretending you don't care, I said. You keep me here, you watch me, but you won't even look at me for long. What do you want from me, Dante? He said nothing. Just that same silence, heavy, controlled. But for the first time, I saw a flicker of something like fear in his eyes. That was when I realized he wasn't ignoring me to be cruel. He was fighting himself. It was Marco, Dante's second-in-command, who broke the fragile calm. He'd always looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe, a nuisance, a threat. So when he actually spoke to me, I knew it wasn't kindness. You look comfortable here, he said, tone lazy but eyes cold. Almost like you've forgotten what kind of man you're living with. I frowned. What do you want, Marco? He smiled, the kind of smile that hides knives. Just thought you should know. We found your brother. My stomach dropped. What? Oh, he's alive. Barely, but alive. Marco tilted his head. Funny thing is, Dante doesn't want you to know. I stared at him, my pulse hammering in my ears. You're lying. Am I? He asked, stepping closer. Ask him yourself. Let's see how honest your little protector really is. And then he walked away, leaving me in the hallway with nothing but his words echoing in my chest. I didn't knock when I entered Dante's office. The door slammed behind me, and for once, he actually looked startled. You found him, I said, voice shaking. My brother. You knew. His jaw tightened. He didn't answer. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded, my voice rising. Why would you keep that from me? He stood, his expression unreadable. Who told you? It doesn't matter, I said. Is it true? The silence that followed was answer enough. Something inside me cracked. You're supposed to be the monster here, remember? So why do you act like you care and then do this? He exhaled slowly, then stepped toward me. 1 step. 2. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him. I didn't tell you, he said quietly, because if I did, I wouldn't have anything left to keep you here. The air left my lungs. He looked down at me, no mask, no coldness. Just raw truth. I refused to tell you your brother was found, because I didn't want to let you go. I'm selfish like that. It was wrong. All of it. And yet, the way he said it, the way his voice broke just a little, made my heart ache in ways I didn't understand. I hated him. I wanted him. And I didn't know which one scared me more. I didn't sleep after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice. I'm selfish like that. Those words shouldn't have hurt as much as they did. He'd admitted it. Not love, not affection, but something darker. Possession. And the worst part was, I couldn't even hate him for it. Because somewhere between his cruelty and his kindness, I'd started to forget what hate felt like. The next morning, Marco found me sitting by the garden steps. His shadow stretched long over the stones. You look like hell, he said, smirking. Didn't sleep? I didn't answer. He crouched down beside me, lowering his voice. Your brother, he's asking for you. I froze. What? He's in one of our safe houses outside the city, Marco said. Dante doesn't want you to know, claims it's for your safety. But I think you deserve to see him. The way he said it, quiet, sincere, made it sound almost believable. Almost. My chest tightened. Why are you telling me this? He shrugged. Because maybe you're not the only one tired of Dante pretending he cares. That did it. The frustration, the confusion, the ache. It all twisted inside me until I couldn't breathe. I stood. Where is he? Marco smiled faintly, eyes glinting. I'll take you there. The ride was silent. Marco drove without speaking, the city lights fading behind us until all that was left were trees and shadows. Something in my gut felt wrong. The road stretched too long, the silence too heavy. When we finally stopped, the place didn't look like a safe house. It looked abandoned. Half-collapsed walls, rusted gates, and the echo of water dripping somewhere in the dark. Marco, I whispered. Where's? The rest of the sentence died in my throat. Because suddenly, 2 men stepped out from the shadows, armed, faces hard. Marco's voice was low, almost regretful. Dante's been distracted. Soft. I'm just fixing that mistake. My blood went cold. You're using me, I said quietly. He smiled, cold, cruel. No. I'm reminding him what happens when he forgets who he is. I backed away, heart pounding, but there was nowhere to go. The men moved closer, and one grabbed my arm. Then, before he could even finish his movement, a gunshot split the night. The sound echoed through the ruin. One man dropped. The others froze. And through the haze of dust and moonlight, there he was. Dante. His expression was unreadable, eyes blazing like smoke and fire. He moved like a storm, efficient, silent, deadly. By the time it was over, the men were down, and Marco was on his knees, gun kicked far out of reach. Dante's voice was low, the kind of low that made the world go still. You dared touch what's mine? Marco spat blood, sneering. He made you weak. Look at you, chasing after him like. The click of Dante's gun silenced him. Get him out of my sight, Dante said to the guards behind him, voice trembling with restrained rage. When the dust settled, I realized my hands were still shaking. Dante turned toward me then, his face unreadable, his breathing heavy. You shouldn't have gone, he said quietly. I swallowed hard. You didn't give me a reason to stay. That made him pause. The cold mask slipped, just a little. Eli, he said, my name breaking softly from his lips like something he wasn't supposed to say. He took a hesitant step forward. Then another. You could have died, he said. Because of me. Because you lied, I shot back. My voice trembled, but I didn't look away. You hid my brother. You kept me here like something you owned. His jaw tightened, but his eyes, they softened. I didn't keep you here because I owned you, he said. I kept you here because I didn't know how to let you go. He was right in front of me now, so close that I could feel the heat radiating off him, the tremor in his breath. I thought I could control it, he whispered. This, whatever this is. But when Marco took you. He stopped, voice breaking. I lost control anyway. My chest ached. Why? He met my eyes, and for once, there was no hesitation. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped being a debt. And started being the only thing I wanted to keep. The world seemed to fall away. The night, the gunfire, the chaos, none of it mattered anymore. When he kissed me this time, it wasn't selfish. It was desperate. Like a man trying to save himself from drowning. And for the first time, I didn't pull away. The sun was setting when Dante said we were leaving. No explanation, no threats, just his quiet voice breaking the steady rhythm of our silence. "Get dressed," he said. "There's someone you need to see." We drove in silence for hours. The city melted away into open fields, the road soft and golden under the fading light. The air in the car felt thick with words we hadn't said, his gloved hands steady on the wheel, my fingers twisting in my lap. When we finally stopped, I didn't recognize the place. A small, quiet cabin surrounded by trees. And standing outside it, my brother. For a moment, the world just stopped. Eli. The air in the underground hall felt heavy. Too still for comfort, too quiet for forgiveness. Dante stood before Aaron, his presence cold enough to silence even the men guarding the door. Aaron looked rough, thinner, bruised from running and hiding, eyes filled with regret that came too late. My chest ached seeing him like that. He was my brother, my only family left, and yet the reason I'd ended up in this world at all. Dante's voice broke the silence, low and commanding. "Your debt," he said, "is cleared." Aaron blinked. "What?" "You heard me." Dante took a slow step forward, his tone calm, but edged with quiet danger. "It's over. You owe me nothing." Aaron frowned in confusion. "Then why?" "Because," Dante cut in, eyes flicking toward me, "some debts can't be paid in blood or money." Aaron's shoulders sagged, relief and disbelief battling across his face. But it didn't last. Dante's gaze hardened again. "Listen carefully, Aaron. From this day forward, you will not come near Eli. You won't call him. You won't send word. You won't even breathe in his direction unless I allow it." Aaron's face fell. "He's my brother." "And from now on," Dante interrupted, his voice low, final, "I'm the only one allowed to protect him." The words sent a shiver through me. They weren't cruel. They weren't a threat. They were a promise. One I didn't realize I'd been waiting for all this time. Aaron looked at me, guilt burning deep in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For everything." I wanted to hate him, but all I could do was nod. He turned away, disappearing down the corridor, leaving behind the past that had tied us both in chains. The storm outside hadn't stopped since sunset. I sat curled on the couch in Dante's office, watching the raindrops chase each other down the window. He stood by the bar, glass in hand, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "You didn't have to do that," I said quietly, cancelling the debt, letting him go. Dante didn't answer right away. He turned the glass slowly, watching the liquid swirl like he was trying to read the truth inside it. Finally, he said, "I didn't do it for him." I frowned. "Then why?" He looked at me, and for once there was no wall, no mask, just honesty. Because I realized, the only thing I wanted from him was already standing in front of me. My heart stumbled. "You're terrible at being subtle, you know that?" A rare smile touched his lips, small, almost shy. "And you're terrible at listening." He walked over, slow and deliberate, until the air between us felt charged. His hand lifted, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The touch was gentle, too gentle for a man like him. "You shouldn't have been dragged into this world," he murmured. "You shouldn't have had to pay for someone else's mistakes." "Maybe," I said softly, "but if I hadn't, I wouldn't have met you." For a second, he froze. Then, without a word, his hand cupped my cheek, and he kissed me. It wasn't fierce like the first one. It was slow, careful, like he was memorizing the feel of something he wasn't sure he deserved. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. "I don't want to share you with anyone," he whispered. "Not even your brother. I'm selfish like that." I smiled faintly through the ache in my chest. "Then be selfish. Just don't let me go." His arm wrapped around me, pulling me against him. Outside, thunder rolled, but inside, for the first time in a long time, everything felt still.